Exclusive.
Exclusive.
Our figure skating club has exclusive use of the rink on Mondays. Our figure skating club has exclusive use of the rink on Mondays. Our figure skating club has exclusive use of the rink on Mondays.
Tune in to our exclusive coverage of Wimbledon. Tune in to our exclusive coverage of Wimbledon. Tune in to our exclusive coverage of Wimbledon. This offer is exclusive to readers of The Sun.
Bel Air is an exclusive suburb of Los Angeles.
An exclusive girls' school.
A racially exclusive hiring policy.
Lesbianism and motherhood are not mutually exclusive.
Our prices are exclusive of sales tax.
The committee's exclusive focus will be to improve public transportation. The committee's exclusive focus will be to improve public transportation.
The exclusivity of private education.
A New York Post exclusive about the Kennedy marriage.
Exclusively.
Exclusively.
This offer is available exclusively to people who call now.
Excommunicate.
Excommunicate.
Ex-con.
Ex-con.
Excoriate.
Excoriate.
An excoriating review in the Times. An excoriating review in the Times.
Excrement.
Excrement.
Excrescence.
Excrescence.
The new museum is nothing but an excrescence on the urban landscape.
Excreta.
Excreta.
Excrete.
Excrete.
Excretion.
Excretion.
Excruciating.
Excruciating.
When I bend my arm, the pain is excruciating.
Helen described the events of the night before in excruciating detail.
His poetry is excruciatingly bad. Exculpate.
Exculpate.
Excursion.
Excursion.
Included in the tour is an excursion to the Grand Canyon. We went on an excursion to the pyramids.
A shopping excursion.
The company's excursion into new markets.
Excusable.
Excusable.
An excusable reaction of anger.
Excuse.
Excuse.
Excuse me, can you tell me the way to the museum, please? Oh, excuse me, I didn't know anyone was here. Excuse me, could I just squeeze past? Excuse me, could I just squeeze past? Excuse me a moment, I'll be right back. Excuse me, but I don't think that's what he meant at all. You're going to pay, right? Excuse me? What time is it? Excuse me. I asked you what time it is.
I'll excuse you this time, but don't be late again.
Please excuse my bad handwriting. Please excuse me for being so late today.
Smith can be excused for his lack of interest in the course.
Can I be excused from swimming today? I have a cold. Can I be excused from swimming today? I have a cold.
Nothing can excuse that kind of rudeness.
May I please be excused from the table? Richard excused himself and went to his room. What's your excuse for being late this time?
I'm tired of listening to his excuses.
I need an excuse to call her.
The conference is just an excuse for a holiday in New York. There is no excuse for such rudeness.
Please make my excuses at the meeting tomorrow.
He's a rotten excuse for a lawyer. Why on earth did you hire him?
X directory.
X directory.
The number is X directory.
After several threatening calls, we decided to go X directory.
Exec.
Exec.
Execrable.
Execrable.
Execrate.
Execrate.
Executable. Executable.
Execute.
Execute.
Thousands have been executed for political crimes.
13 people were summarily executed by the guerrillas.
The job involves drawing up and executing a plan of nursing care. The job involves drawing up and executing a plan of nursing care. The job involves drawing up and executing a plan of nursing care.
The skater's routine was perfectly executed.
A boldly executed story.
Execution.
Execution.
A public execution.
The two men face execution. Torture and summary execution are common.
He was granted a stay of execution. The formulation and execution of urban policy.
The execution of a will.
Art that is unusual in design and execution.
Executioner.
Executioner.
Executive.
Executive.
A marketing executive.
Top executives on high salaries.
The union's executive.
A commission with executive powers.
The executive dining room.
Executive toys.
Executive privilege.
Executive privilege.
Executor.
Executor.
Exegesis.
Exegesis.
Exemplar.
Exemplar.
Milt's career as an exemplar of survival in difficult times.
Exemplary.
Exemplary.
A company with an exemplary record on environmental issues. Exemplify.
Exemplify.
The building exemplifies the style of architecture which was popular at the time.
Problems are exemplified in the report. Problems are exemplified in the report.
Exempt.
Exempt.
The interest is exempt from income tax. The interest is exempt from income tax.
Children are exempt from the charges. Charities are exempted from paying the tax.
A document that exempts the owner from liability in case of accidents. A document that exempts the owner from liability in case of accidents.
Exemption.
Exemption.
You qualify for a tax exemption on the loan. You qualify for a tax exemption on the loan. You qualify for a tax exemption on the loan.
Exemption from customs duties.
The Commission granted temporary exemptions.
Exercise.
Exercise.
Try to fit some regular exercise into your daily routine.
Working in an office, I don't get much exercise.
Most people need to do more exercise.
Gentle exercise can be beneficial for older people.
After the operation, you should avoid strenuous exercise. After the operation, you should avoid strenuous exercise.
Stretching exercises.
You can do exercises to strengthen your stomach muscles.
Relaxation exercises.
Role-play exercises.
Do exercises 3 and 4 on page 51 for homework.
Closing libraries as part of a cost-cutting exercise.
It's a pointless exercise.
Buying a house can be an exercise in frustration.
A military exercise.
Half the unit was away on exercise.
The exercise of political leadership.
There are plans to encourage people to exercise their right to vote.
People who can exercise some control over their surroundings feel less anxious. People who can exercise some control over their surroundings feel less anxious. People who can exercise some control over their surroundings feel less anxious. People who can exercise some control over their surroundings feel less anxious.
It's important to exercise regularly.
Swimming exercises all the major muscle groups.
People exercising their dogs in the park.
It's an issue that's exercised the minds of scientists for a long time.
It was clear that Flavia had been exercised by this thought.
Exercise bike.
Exercise bike.
Exercise book.
Exercise book.
Exert.
Exert.
They exerted considerable influence within the school.
Environmental groups are exerting pressure on the government to tighten pollution laws.
He has exerted himself tirelessly on behalf of the charity.
Exert. Exertion.
Exertion.
The afternoon's exertions had left us feeling exhausted.
Mental exertion. The exertion of authority.
Exeunt.
Exeunt.
Exfoliate.
Exfoliate.
Ex gratia.
Ex gratia.
An ex gratia payment of £15,000.
Exhale.
Exhale.
Take a deep breath, then exhale slowly.
Exhaust.
Exhaust.
A full day's teaching exhausts me. He'd exhausted himself carrying all the boxes upstairs.
We are in danger of exhausting the world's oil supply.
Having exhausted all other possibilities, I asked Jan to look after the baby.
Once we'd exhausted the subject of Jill's wedding, I didn't know what to say. Once we'd exhausted the subject of Jill's wedding, I didn't know what to say.
Exhaust fumes.
Exhausted.
Exhausted.
You look absolutely exhausted.
I was exhausted by the journey.
An exhausted coal mine.
Exhausting.
Exhausting.
An exhausting process.
It had been an exhausting day.
Exhaustion.
Exhaustion.
He collapsed with exhaustion.
Sheer exhaustion forced him to give up.
Many runners were suffering from heat exhaustion.
The exhaustion of oil supplies.
Exhaustive.
Exhaustive.
An exhaustive investigation.
The list is by no means exhaustive.
Exhibit.
Exhibit.
Her paintings have been exhibited all over the world.
A patient who is exhibiting classic symptoms of mental illness.
The exhibits date from the 17th century.
Exhibit A is the hammer found next to the victim.
A big exhibit in Milan.
Exhibition.
Exhibition.
An exhibition of black and white photographs.
The museum is staging an exhibition of Picasso's work.
She never agreed to the public exhibition of her sculptures while she was still alive.
A collection of paintings by David Hockney is on exhibition at the Museum of Art.
I've never seen such an exhibition of jealousy.
Exhibitionism.
Exhibitionism.
Exhibitionist.
Exhibitionist.
Exhibitor.
Exhibitor.
An exhibitor at a trade show.
Exhilarate.
Exhilarate.
Exhilarated.
Exhilarated.
Dan felt strangely exhilarated by the day's events.
Exhilarating.
Exhilarating.
An exhilarating experience.
An exhilarating walk.
Exhilaration.
Exhilaration.
She enjoyed the exhilaration of jet skiing. Exhort.
Exhort.
Police exhorted the crowd to remain calm.
Exhume.
Exhume.
Exigencies.
Exigencies.
The exigencies of war.
Exigent.
Exigent.
Exiguous.
Exiguous.
Exiguous earnings.
Exile. Exile.
A writer now living in exile.
He went into exile to escape political imprisonment.
The house was raided and the family was forced into exile. The house was raided and the family was forced into exile.
He spent many years in enforced exile.
She had been in voluntary exile since 1990.
Political exiles.
Several of the leaders were arrested and exiled to France. A dictator who was exiled from his home country.
The exiled former president.
Exist.
Exist.
The custom of arranged marriages still exists in many countries.
Opportunities exist for students to gain sponsorship.
Stop pretending that the problem doesn't exist.
The club will cease to exist if financial help is not found. The club will cease to exist if financial help is not found.
Do fairies really exist?
Tom acts as if I don't exist at times. Tom acts as if I don't exist at times. Tom acts as if I don't exist at times.
The hostages existed on bread and water. The hostages existed on bread and water.
Existence.
Existence.
It is impossible to prove the existence of God.
The organization has been in existence for 25 years.
Scientists have many theories about how the universe first came into existence. The very existence of the museum is threatened by lack of funding.
The continued existence of economic inequalities.
Pablo led a miserable existence when he first moved to San Juan.
Existential.
Existential.
Existent.
Existent.
Existent differences.
Existentialism.
Existentialism.
Existing.
Existing.
The existing laws.
The service is available to all existing customers.
Exit.
Exit.
We made for the nearest exit.
An exit door.
2 men were blocking her exit.
They made a quick exit when they saw the police approaching.
Take the next exit for Lynchburg. France's early exit from the World Cup.
I exited through a side window.
He exited the courtroom in a fury.
Press F3 to exit.
Exit Hamlet, bearing the body of Polonius.
Exit poll. Exit poll.
Exit strategy. Exit strategy. The president convinced people that he had a workable exit strategy to free his forces from the conflict.
Exodus.
Exodus.
A massive exodus of doctors is forcing the government to recruit from abroad.
The exodus from the countryside to the towns in the 19th century.
I joined the mass exodus for drinks during the interval.
Ex officio.
Ex officio.
Exonerate.
Exonerate.
He was totally exonerated of any blame.
Exoplanet.
Exoplanet.
Exorbitant.
Exorbitant.
Exorcism.
Exorcism.
Exorbitant.
Exorbitant.
Exorbitant rates of interest.
Exorcism.
Exorcism.
Exorcist.
Exorcist.
Exorcise.
Exercise.
Trying to exorcise the past.
Exoskeleton.
Exoskeleton. Exotic.
Exotic.
Exotic birds.
Exotic places.
Exotica.
Exotica.
Exotic dancer.
Exotic dancer.
Expand.
Expand.
Water expands as it freezes.
Sydney's population expanded rapidly in the 1960s. Sydney's population expanded rapidly in the 1960s.
Exercises that expand the chest muscles.
His expanding waistline.
The computer industry has expanded greatly over the last decade.
The hotel wants to expand its business by adding a swimming pool.
The rapidly expanding field of information technology.
We have plans to expand into the U.S. market.
After a few whiskies, he started to expand a little.
Payne later expanded on his initial statement.
Expandable.
Expandable.
A computer with 2 GB RAM expandable to 4 GB RAM.
Expanse.
Expanse.
An expanse of blue sky.
The vast expanse of the ocean.
Expansion.
Expansion.
The rapid expansion of cities can cause social and economic problems.
An expansion in student numbers.
The industry underwent a period of rapid expansion. The industry underwent a period of rapid expansion.
The novel is an expansion of a short story he wrote about 40 years ago.
Expansionary.
Expansionary.
Expansionary fiscal policy.
Expansion card.
Expansion card.
Expansionism.
Expansionism.
Military expansionism.
Expansion slot.
Expansion slot.
Expansive.
Expansive.
Hauser was in an expansive mood.
Expansive beaches. She flung her arms out in an expansive gesture.
An expansive definition.
It was written in an expansive style. Expansive economic policies.
Expat.
Expat.
Expatiate.
Expatiate.
Expatriate.
Expatriate.
British expatriates living in Spain.
Expatriate workers.
Expect.
Expect.
I expect to be back within a week.
The company expects to complete work in April.
Emergency repairs were expected to take 3 weeks.
I didn't expect him to stay so long.
There's the doorbell. I expect it'll be my mother.
He will be hard to beat. I fully expect that, and I'm ready. Who are you? He murmured, only half expecting her to answer.
He didn't get his expected pay rise.
As expected, the whole family was shocked by the news.
A little nervousness is only to be expected when you are starting a new job. A little nervousness is only to be expected when you are starting a new job.
The officer expects complete obedience from his troops. The officer expects complete obedience from his troops.
I can't expect her to be on time if I'm late myself.
The school expects a lot of its students.
We're expecting Alison home any minute now.
Snow is expected by the weekend.
An expected crowd of 80,000 people.
I expected her to be taller than me, not shorter.
He was late, but what do you expect?
Expect.
Expectancy.
Expectancy.
I saw the look of expectancy in the children's eyes.
Expectant.
Expectant.
A row of expectant faces.
He looked expectantly at Sarah, but she didn't speak.
Expectation.
Expectation.
For some time he lived with the expectation that he was going to die.
Anne left Germany in the expectation of seeing her family again before very long.
Against all expectations, getting up at 5 is actually easier in winter.
Having raised expectations, he went on to help only a few people.
Profits are below expectations.
Gina has succeeded beyond our expectations. The show exceeded all expectations.
His performance did not live up to our expectations. The number of people who attended fell short of expectations.
Women who have high expectations of marriage are often disappointed.
Some people have totally unrealistic expectations of both medical and nursing staff.
Expectorant.
Expectorant.
Expectorate.
Expectorate.
Expediency.
Expediency.
The ethics of political expediency.
Expediency.
Expedient.
Expedient.
This solution is politically expedient, but may well cause long-term problems.
We think it is expedient to make a goodwill gesture to the new administration.
Moore escaped by the simple expedient of lying down in a clump of grass. Moore escaped by the simple expedient of lying down in a clump of grass.
Expedite.
Expedite.
Strategies to expedite the decision-making process.
Expedition.
Expedition.
An expedition to the North Pole.
Another Everest expedition.
A shopping expedition.
A fishing expedition.
Expeditionary force.
Expeditionary force.
Expeditiously.
Expeditiously.
All issues presented to the court are considered as fairly and expeditiously as possible. All issues presented to the court are considered as fairly and expeditiously as possible.
An expeditious system for examining claims for refugee status.
Expel.
Expel.
2 girls were expelled from school for taking drugs.
The main opposition leader was expelled from her party.
He was expelled for making racist remarks.
Foreign priests were expelled from the country.
3 diplomats were expelled for spying.
Expend.
Expend.
People of different ages expend different amounts of energy.
Manufacturers have expended a lot of time and effort trying to improve computer security. A great deal of time and money has been expended on creating a pleasant office atmosphere.
Expendable.
Expendable.
It's a sad moment when a man loses his job and discovers that he is expendable. It's a sad moment when a man loses his job and discovers that he is expendable. It's a sad moment when a man loses his job and discovers that he is expendable. Expenditure.
Expenditure.
Expenditure on research and development.
Huge cuts in public expenditure.
Government expenditure on education. Capital expenditure.
An expenditure of £1 million. The expenditure of time and money on your house or garden. Expense.
Expense.
He borrowed £150,000 and used the money for legal expenses.
Conference rooms were equipped at great expense.
Can you claim this meal on expenses?
The growth in short breaks at the expense of longer package holidays. The growth in short breaks at the expense of longer package holidays.
Her mansion was refurnished at taxpayers' expense.
Louis kept making jokes at his wife's expense.
The prize is an all-expenses-paid trip to Rio. The prize is an all-expenses-paid trip to Rio.
Expense account. Expense account.
I have an expense account and spend about £10,000 a year on entertaining.
Expensive.
Expensive.
The most expensive restaurant in town.
Petrol is becoming more and more expensive. Photography is an expensive hobby.
The house was too big and expensive to run.
For low-income families, children's safety equipment can be prohibitively expensive. For low-income families, children's safety equipment can be prohibitively expensive.
Employing the wrong builder can be a horribly expensive mistake.
Her husband had expensive tastes.
She's always expensively dressed. Experience.
Experience.
You've got a lot of experience of lecturing. My experience in many areas of the music business.
He had no previous experience of managing a farm.
The advice in the booklet reflects the practical experience we have gained.
I had some experience in fashion design.
She was turned down on the grounds of lack of experience. I have first-hand experience of running a school.
The program enables pupils to gain some experience of the world of work.
In his experience, women did not like getting their feet wet and muddy.
Being a parent isn't easy, as I know from experience.
I speak from bitter experience. I speak from bitter experience. I speak from bitter experience.
From personal experience, she knew and understood the problems of alcohol addiction.
Beth's experience suggests that people don't really change deep down.
Childhood experiences.
This was my first experience of living with other people.
Failing an exam was a new experience for me.
I had a similar experience last year.
The two children in this story have been through a lot of bad experiences.
Parachuting is quite an experience.
This romantic evening cruise is a memorable experience.
This kind of religious experience was a sign of God's special favor. This kind of religious experience was a sign of God's special favor.
No writer expresses the black experience with such passion as Toni Morrison. No writer expresses the black experience with such passion as Toni Morrison.
Ella is about to do work experience with a clothing manufacturer. Students on work experience.
Many old people will experience problems as the result of retirement.
Children need to experience things for themselves in order to learn from them. Many women experience feelings of nausea during pregnancy. Many women experience feelings of nausea during pregnancy.